brother.
Hey.
Good to see you. How are you?
See you too.
Doing good? Looking good?
I got talked about something after
Okay.
afterwards.
Okay. Let's do it.
All right. Good luck.
Good deal.
I know.
Ace. Good deal, Mayor. Meds are all fixed. Good, Mayor. Ready to roll. Good, Mayor. We're on. We're on. I like to hear. We're on. Anywhere. Right there.
I'm ready to. How about you just cut a sweep on back here while else you guys will be approved? I know. Hi.
We got to get these things turned around. You know, I couldn't understand. Why was there 4 or 3 something?
How you doing?
All right.
If you get tonight, come find me and me.
capitalize on living forever.
Her costume, I know, it was good.
I'm hearing what was happening before Pat, he said one of my neighbors had found a lot of kids' stories there. And he said, she's going to leave. I said, why? He said, I said, well, you've got to get the word out. She's got to leave. And that's what she wants to do. But now a lot of these Democrats I was going to. Oh, Ray. How are you?
Yes.
What are you talking about? Oh, okay. You know what I did? I talked to because that's usually what talking.
Joan,
I saw all the cars heading that way.
So when Joan, Ray was the finance
Don't
director
know
for
a lot
many
about
years.
me? True. Everybody ties. Saint Joe.
That's it. Oh my God, yes.
Married to me.
Oh, but
All done. Fix the leak. Katie, good luck. I'm with you guys all the way. Anything I can do to help you the last couple of days.
Yeah.
All right? Let me know. Let me know.
I did get a couple of these where I'm around town. Holidays.
Okay, we're going to get started. My name is Gene Duvale. I'm the managing editor of the News Times and Spectrum, and we're the co-sponsor of the debate with the Chamber of Commerce. I just want to make a couple of acknowledgments and announcements before we get started. First, I want to thank the Chamber. Jen Birdseye will have something to say in just a minute. I want to thank the school system for getting this set up. It's quite a good setup for a debate. I want to thank the candidates for agreeing without any difficulty or rancor whatsoever about getting this set up, and certainly Ken Taylor for being our moderator. And so this is going to be our format. We're going to start with 2-minute statements by each candidate, and then we're going to have questions that will be posed by Ken with 2-minute first answer from the first candidate, 2-minute response, and then a 30-second rebuttal. So roughly 4.5 to 5 minutes for each question. I'm going to be the timekeeper, and I'll try to keep everybody on time, but Ken, as the moderator, has the discretion to let things go a little bit and try not to make it too rigid, so we have a little bit more of a discussion than the rigid format. At the end, we'll have 1-minute statements, the opposite order that we had at the beginning, and I guess we're ready to go. Let me first turn this over to Jen Birdseye, and after that, Ken will come forward and introduce the candidates.
Milford. My name is Jennifer Birdseye. I am the second vice president of the Greater Milford Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for coming tonight. On behalf of the Chamber's Board of Directors, we wanted to just take this opportunity to allow this event to happen. Part of the Chamber's mission is to promote civic interest and general welfare of the town of New Milford, and we're pleased to sponsor tonight's community event, just as we're pleased to sponsor things like the fireworks or the tree lighting. Shameless plug at a Saturday, November 25th, so be there and start out the holiday season as a town. I would like to thank the News Times for coordinating tonight's event, and Mr. Ken Taylor, tonight's moderator, and the candidates, Mr. Gigas and Mayor David Gronbach. Thank you for participating, and good luck to both of you. And with that, I will pass the event to Ken Taylor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ken Taylor, and I have been asked to be tonight's moderator, which I am honored to fulfill that role. My role is going to be to ask questions of the candidates and hopefully ensure that both candidates have a fair amount of time to express their views on the issue and to introduce themselves to the voters. Tonight's forum will be divided into a few segments. First, the candidates will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, and we had a coin toss in the back beforehand, and Mayor Gronbach will go first. I will then ask some candidates some questions on a multitude of issues, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, and the person that went first will have a 30-second rebuttal. Around 7:40, 7:45, we're going to try to take a short break, so if anyone from the audience has a question they'd like to submit, as Gene indicated, there are some note cards in that background table. Please fill out your question, and if you can fill it as soon as possible, because we're going to review the questions for appropriateness, and we'll have to ask those questions near the end of the debate. And we'll try to ask as many of those questions as possible. Each candidate will then have a 1-minute closing statement at the end. I remind everyone present that these candidates have taken the admirable step of offering their services to our town of New Milford, and if elected, have the unenviable task of spending countless hours working on important issues to which there are often no good answers, and for which they receive very little recognition or praise. They deserve our respect in this forum. I remind the candidates that this forum is designed to allow members of the public insight as to your views and motivations for running for office. Disagreement on issues is expected. Personal attacks are not welcome and will not be allowed. I would like everyone to know that the opinions expressed by the candidates are theirs and theirs only, not those of the News Times or the Chamber of Commerce. And finally, I would ask your indulgence as the audience to please hold your applause or gasps, as they may be, until the end of the debate. That way we can keep it moving and get as many questions answered as possible. It's now my honor to introduce the challenger, Mr. Peter Bass.
Yes. I would like to thank the News Times and the New Milford Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this evening's debate. I would like to thank my wife, Tammy, my 3 beautiful daughters, Otani, Tia, and Jordan, for their support and their encouragement. Thank you to Mr. Gronbach for agreeing to this debate, giving the opportunity for you, the public, to see what each of us has to offer today. As a resident of this town for 27 years, my wife's family going back multiple generations, hundreds of years, our family roots are deeply planted into Milford. I have served on the town council for multiple terms and given back to the town in one way or another for over 23 years. I love New Milford, and I'm proud to call New Milford my home. New Milford is a special place with volunteers who give their time and talents. From the youth coaches and mentors, veterans honoring the following, the wonderful ladies of the New Milford Garden Club, with all the civic organizations from the Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, Lions Club, Women's Club, and the list goes on and on. From the churches, the synagogue, all places of worship offering their time and talent as well. From the volunteers that sit on boards and commissions giving their time and talent, reinforces my belief that when a community pulls together, amazing things can happen. And I'm excited for this debate tonight to share with you, my fellow citizens of New Milford, my vision for our wonderful town. A vision that includes all parties and opinions, everyone's input, even if it differs from my own. I thank you for the opportunity. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Pastor. Mayor Gronbach.
Good evening, everyone. What do you think, Gene? So thank you, everybody, for coming out. It's good to see everybody. This is an important event, and I'm glad to see so many people here for it. So this is giving me deja vu. It was 2 years ago. It seems like yesterday when we were at the debate. We were at the library. It was an overflow crowd. They had to stream it downstairs because there wasn't enough room for people to view the debate. And it just goes to show how engaged and involved the community has become in our local politics, and that's a good thing, because there was a time when it didn't seem like voter turnout was that impressive. So the fact that people are engaged is a healthy sign of our local democracy. And 2 years ago, it was a big change when we took office, but we didn't run on a campaign of change for the sake of change. We ran on very specific issues that we saw affecting the town after 12 years of the prior administration. And we ran on issues like saving petty vote, like bringing financial accountability and responsibility to town hall, and investing in our community in quality of life issues like the library and the river trail. And what I've done over the past 2 years with the help of my town council and the other people that were elected from both sides of the aisle, not just Democrats, but Republicans as well, is follow up on those campaign promises to invest in our community, to cut the fat in our local and our financial government, whether it be big, like a salary in my office from an employee, or small things like cutting the cable bill or newspaper subscriptions that really weren't necessary. All of those dollars added up, and you see that in my first budget that actually reduced taxes for the first time in, recent memory. So with that financial accountability, with the investment that we've seen in projects like the Riverwalk, the expansion of Lindeming, things like the skate park or the Vietnam Memorial, you see these are investments in our community that just make it a better place. So we've been focused on that for the past 2 years. We've been following up on our campaign promises that brought us into power in the first place. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, 2 years is not that long. We're asking for another 2 years to continue on that progress and keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Gronbach. The first question goes to Mayor Gronbach. As mayor, what do you think your first responsibility is to the citizens of our town?
Yeah, the mayor is the CEO of a $40 million operation. And as the CEO, as the chief executive officer, the mayor's first responsibility is to advocate on behalf of the citizens and on behalf of the town. And that's what I've been doing every single day since I've been mayor. And that ranges from the citizen that's calling up because they haven't been able to get their sand that usually is allocated and figuring out a way how they can get their sand there in the wintertime, to large projects where we have to advocate, whether it's Century Brass and dealing with the EPA and trying to get that project to move forward, whether it's firing a contractor and then having to deal with that in court. The main responsibility of the mayor, from big to small, is to be an advocate for the town.
Thank you. Mr. Bass?
Thank you. The role of the mayor is CEO of the town, but of the whole town. So to me, that would be a $100 million budget, not a $40 million one. Because you need to be accountable not only for the town side, but work with the Board of Ed to sell a budget to the public and to explain to the public why you need those funds. The mayor also needs to provide the vision statement to the town to let the town know where we're headed, both now and in the future. Because the future is where our younger generation is going to be. And we need to hold ourselves accountable, not only for us, but for them as well. Also, as the mayor, you also need to work in tandem with the people that work for you. So you need to hear their concerns, their needs, and what they need to accomplish their tasks and their goals so that we can accomplish what the citizens want us to do. And that's provide a safe, wonderful environment for our children and ourselves to live, work, and play in the greatest town I know, and that's New Milford, Connecticut.
Yes, absolutely. So, is it still working? Yeah, is it here?
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually much better. Here you go. So yes, as an advocate, that is one of the most important things that the mayor does, and it touches every single aspect of the life of the people here in New Milford, and the budget is a great part of that. So the first budget that we presented, it actually was defeated because it was opposed on the RTC had advocated to reject it. So it is important to come together at a certain point, and even when you have disagreements, to advocate for what is in the best interest of the town. And what I've seen and what is very clear about this is that you're never going to get everything that you want. The essence of effective management is compromise, and compromise means both parties coming together at the end of the day, maybe not getting everything that they want, but agreeing that it's the best thing to move forward. And so that's an important part of the CEO of this town. It is 40 million, it's 100 million when you consider the Board of Ed's budget. And you really do have to be committed to that, and hopefully you've seen that over the past 2 years.
Thank you. Next question is for Mr. Bass. We know that the sewer plant does not generate enough revenue to pay the town's bond obligation. How do you think the millions of dollars of sewer commission debt should be handled? Is it something that only sewer users should take on, or something that should be spread across all town residents?
Thank you, Ken. Great question. There's been a lot of banter back and forth about the sewer plant, and the sewer owes the town. First and foremost, the sewer and the town are together. Even though the sewer is its own WPCA, the bonds are held by the town. The town voted in a town budget to do the sewer plant expansion. Why? Because without it, the water wouldn't be safe. It's being discharged into the Housatonic. As a matter of fact, we're spending a ton of money right now to revitalize that riverfront. Wouldn't be able to do it without safe water. Also downtown, you wouldn't have it without the sewer. So, in taking on that endeavor, the economy collapsed. You only have 30% of the district on the plant right now. So, one of the things that we need to do is, while we're still bringing economic development to town, as the town always has, the town needs to help subsidize the plant that helps everybody. Just like your schools, just like the buildings downtown, they help everyone. We pull together, we work together. And the $4 million debt isn't a $4 million debt. There was $2.3 million in an account that was earmarked for the sewer. So when you take that back, it goes to 1.9. And the interesting thing about that was, at the sewer meeting, I was there with Lee Palmer and with the rest of the sewer commission, and we hammered out an agreement to take care of that backward accounts receivable at the time that now turned into a payable. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the sewer issue is, I'm going to try to simplify a little bit of an explanation. So, first of all, what usually happens is, if there's an expansion, let's say the sewer is expanded to somebody's neighborhood, and it costs $1 million, what would happen then is that $1 million would get assessed as a benefit assessment over, let's say, 20 years. So that whatever money was borrowed to pay for that expansion is being paid for by the people that are benefited by it over 20 years, and so that everything evens out. Let's say it's $100,000 a year, you break up those assessments. The problem that happened with the expansion of the sewer debt is that that money that was borrowed, that $20, $40 million, whatever it was never allocated as a benefit assessment. And what was sold to the town was that we're not going to assess the sewer users for this upgrade so that the bond payments can be paid. What we're going to do is we're going to rely on connection fees. Every time somebody connects to the sewer or somebody changes their usage, we're going to charge them a connection fee, and that's going to pay the bond debt. Well, lo and behold, this isn't New York City. You don't have the level of volume that people are connecting year after year to pay that debt. So what happened is, the debt that the town is responsible for might be $1.7 million every year. The sewer commission might be paying $1 million, and that balance, that $700,000, was being clocked on the town's books as an accounts receivable, the difference, so it would be $700,000. And this is going on every year, so it starts, it's $1 million, and then it's $2 million, and then it's $3 million, and then it's $4 million, and then it's $4.5 million, and then, our financial people and the auditors recognize you got a real problem here, because Mr. Bass says that it's not a debt, that it's all the same money. It absolutely is, because we were showing that $4.5 million as an accounts receivable on our books, as part of our surplus. So you can't say that we've got $4.5 million, it makes part of our surplus, yay, we're healthy as a town financially, but oh wait, we really don't expect to get that money paid back. That was a big problem. All done? All right.
Thank you. Former finance Finance Director, Ray Jankowski, was the one that told us that the receivable, as long as it didn't go above the $4.5 million and we had a plan to pay it back, was okay. So a plan was going to be put in place. Here's the really good news. After much discussion, we took the $2.3 million that was in another account, earmarked for the sewer, and paid down the debt. Then with Lee Palmer and the Sewer Commission, we came up with a plan to pay the rest off. So guess what? Great news. That problem is solved. But the next problem is, ladies and gentlemen, we still have to figure out a way to get users onto the plant and bring economic vitality to town. And as your mayor, I'm going to do that.
If we could have the AV folks come up and maybe check this mic so we don't have to keep passing the mic back, that would be fantastic. Next question, which goes to Mayor Gronbach, concerning the landfill settlement fund. What is the best way to use it? For tax relief or one-time projects?
Yeah, the landfill settlement funds, it already sets forth what's the best way to use it. 90% of the fund is allocated for parks and recreation facilities, for educational facilities, and for library facilities. That's what the intent of the fund is set forth, because that's 90% of the fund that's available for. Only 10% of the fund is available for tax relief. But over the past 15 years, you've seen almost 100% of the fund being used for that tax relief. And I think that's out of balance. So when we came in, this fund is a tremendous asset for the town. It was intended to be used for Parks and Rec and for library and for educational facilities. So I think that we achieved a really good balance in continuing to grow the fund. I think when I started, it was at 10 million. It was at 12.5 million the other week. So it's available for tax relief, the 10%, but we're also using it for its intended purpose, which is Parks and Recreation. So you see, we've got a community center now because we've been using it. We've got an expansion of the senior center. We've got a Vietnam Memorial on the green that we use for that. We use it for the river trail and the incredible things that we've done along the river. And we've got the Hidden Treasures Park that is being developed. So with that, it's a good balance, and that's the way the ordinance was created, to achieve that balance.
So the Landfill Settlement Fund, I'd first like to thank George Doring, may his memory be eternal, and all the people that worked on that committee to bring the waste management to town. One of the concerns that I have is that we have about 7 years left of this. We've used this landfill settlement fund to help offset taxes. Matter of fact, this year, first year ever, 2 things happened. Number 1, we used over $1 million for tax relief. Number 2, we spent more money than we got in. So that's a concern of mine. So as your mayor, I'm going to work like heck to wean us off of that, because that money should go to one-time projects, which is what Mr. Doring and that committee wanted, and the rest of the people want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so that's a really good point. So over the past 15 years, one of the most amazing things is that this fund that has grown to over $12 million was never being invested. And it was anticipated at the time that it would be invested. So one of the first things we did, and this is Frank Wargo's suggestion, he's been screaming about this for years, is that we took a portion of the funds and we're finally investing it, so that in 2024, when we get that last $2.7 million payment, that there's still money coming in, we're generating interest, and for the first time, we're actually generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest by conservatively investing that fund, only a portion of it, $5 million. And as the fund continues to grow, and as that investment continues to grow, so will the interest as well. So that this is going to be something that we continue to have as a resource beyond 2024 for 10, 20, 30 years in the future.
Thank you. Next question is for Mr. Bass. It has been over 10 years since the last charter review. Are there any provisions of the charter that you think should be revised? And should the role of the Board of Ed be changed? I mean, Board of Finance, sorry.
Thank you, Ken. Great question. So I definitely believe, which we're due, is for a charter revision. And I 100% believe that the Board of Finance needs to have more of a say. The reason why is because we need to have more accountability. We need to have another set of eyes on our finances. So not only does the mayor's office and the council review the budget and have an opportunity, but with a strong Board of Finance, they too can look at those dollars. And there's been many times in the past that they've been the action, just as they were this year. They've been an action point of making sure that our budgets are properly done. Also, I would say that all major projects, even monies through the landfill settlement fund, need to go to the Board of Finance, because that's what the charter says, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Yeah, so in getting into office, one of the first things I did was go back and read minutes. And what I did was I read the minutes from the last time there was a charter revision. And it was interesting because after the last charter revision, I think it was between 10 and 15 years ago, they actually reduced the role and the authority of the Board of Finance. And that was the result of a bipartisan agreement. At that point, the suggestion was actually to do away with the Board of Finance, and the compromise was to keep it with a limited role. And I think in reviewing that committee in the minutes, they did it because they realized that, you know, this is the 2000s, now it's 2017. We've got a finance director that is reporting regularly to the town council. When it approves these things, they've got reports, they see what's going on with finance, they see where we are with the year-to-date, the budget, and the town council is the legislative authority. And in reading that minutes, it appeared that they felt the council and the board and the finance director were in a better position to monitor and to manage the finance going forward. Now, I have no objection. I think that the charter needs to be reviewed again. I mean, we're still referring to first selectmen in the charter, so they haven't gotten to everything, and it actually conflicts with a number of places. But that's another great discussion that we need to have about what is the role of the Board of Finance. It's got a big role in setting the budget, and I think that the compromise that they reached 10 or 15 years ago was a good one, but it's worth discussing.
What's great is now we have a track record. So we had the former charter revision where the Board of Finance was reduced, and we've seen the outcome. And to me, we need to go back. We need to have a second set of eyes to take a look at what the mayor's office, the town council then do. Prime example, the finance director hasn't been to our meetings as a town council. He's given us an email on a report, but he hasn't been there. So, if we have another set of eyes, that's another opportunity for our personnel to come not only to town council, but to Board of Finance as well, so that you, the public, have two chances to be able to review the finances, not just one or none.
Thank you. Next question for Mayor Gronbach. Turning to some quality of life issues. The nation is fighting an opioid crisis that has not spared New Milford and is killing people every day. What can you do as mayor to fight this scourge?
Yeah, Ken, one of the first things that we could do is first of all acknowledge that we have this problem. And when I took to office 2 years ago, we were still arguing about whether or not the opioid epidemic had come to New Milford. And as soon as I got into office and I started working with the Substance Abuse Council, it was very clear that it was here, that people were dying in New Milford, and that action needed to be taken and needed to be done. But the first thing was to address that and to actually admit that we had an issue here as well as the surrounding communities. And then beyond that, so one of the first things we did was double the budget for the Substance Abuse Council, give them the opportunity to focus on combating substance abuse rather than worrying about who's going to pay the $100 to make copies for flyers. These were the conversations that were happening when I first got here, and we're trying to give them the resources to actually act rather than get bogged down in bureaucracy or the administrative side of things. And they've done that by getting data, by having a survey for the first time being conducted in our high school and in our middle school to get data about the substance abuse issues in our schools with our students. And using that data now to tailor programs to parents, to children, to law enforcement, to try to get some kind of cohesive plan together. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we can't do it alone. I mean, the town of New Milford does not have the resources to overcome this. So we were working with the state and working with the federal government to get those dollars that they've been promising for so long, saying we've got millions of dollars and we're going to apply for this, and getting it here so that we can actually see it take effect in our town. And right now, we have it. We've been funding it. We've been doing what we can with volunteers and with community actors. But clearly, it hasn't been enough and there's more to do.
We all know the opioid epidemic and the drug epidemic is a tsunami. It's not only affecting New Milford and Connecticut, but it's affecting the whole country. So what can we do as a town? There's a few things that we can do. One is we can, as Kevin Brown has said, who's a very familiar character to a lot of us when it comes to drug prevention, is we can talk about being able to find more beds for the addicted. Number two, have a no tolerance policy for drugs in this town. And that includes the people that deal in this town and the people that do it in the schools. We will partner with the Board of Ed for a no tolerance drugs so that our kids are safe and they know that if people are going to try and do that in this town, they've got a problem. On top of that, we also have to, as parents, become more educated in how the drugs are being used by our youth, as well as those in our 20s and 30s. We need to be educated, educate ourselves, and educate our community. If we do these steps, I think we have a great opportunity to help. We can't do it all because it's a national problem, but every little bit, every little inch helps.
Thank you. Yeah, to say no tolerance suggests that we do have a tolerance in the town, and I want to be clear to everybody here. The Board of Education, the schools, they have a no tolerance policy when it comes to drugs. If somebody's found with drugs, they are expelled and suspended. Our police force has a zero tolerance policy. Our police chief and our police force are incredible professionals. From the detectives, we've got people from the statewide narcotics force working here. They have zero tolerance. They prosecute everything from the small drug sale of marijuana on the street corner all the way up to major busts involving heroin. So we do have a no tolerance policy in town already.
Thank you. Next question goes for Mr. Bass. The two of you have worked together for a number of years. What is one strength or positive character trait that you see in your opponent?
I think that Mayor Gronbach is very passionate about his beliefs. He's a very good family man, which to me means quite a bit. And one of the things that I did notice with Mayor Gronbach when we were at a Board of Ed meeting with the public was he talked about adding capital reserve accounts to different departments, which I thought was a wonderful idea.
Yeah, Pete is definitely an advocate when it comes to the sports programs in town. He attends a lot of the sports events. And like I said before in the campaign, sports is an important kind of peg of our educational system and apparatus. It's education, it's arts, but sports are a big part of that. And he's been a great advocate. His work on the turf fields commission and getting the turf fields in place is a testament to that. And he is a great, you can tell that he goes to events and he cares about the community. There's no doubt that his heart is in the right place, and that when we do see each other, it's always cordial. And we always come together to support whatever team that's playing or whatever event that we're at. So that's the kind of trait that we need to see, amongst everybody in our town government.
Next question is for Mayor town. What can be done from the office of mayor to make New Milford a more welcoming place?
Yeah, Ken, I would say, first of all, New Milford is a welcoming place. I wouldn't define our town or a welcome mat by the acts of one lone or a couple of lone individuals. That doesn't represent who New Milford is. But what the mayor's office can do and has done is being an outspoken advocate for saying that this is a terrible event, it doesn't represent us, and we're better than that. And it was a great outpouring of support and community coming together at Thompson's in the wake of that attack. And the mayor's office is an important leader in that, and anything that happens in the future, whether it's the incident at Thompson's or any kind of incident in which, even when an elected official is threatened, the mayor's office has to be an advocate for civility and to be a cheerleader for the best things about our town, and not focus on the ugliness that creeps up from time to time in any community.
Let me exemplify what New Milford really is. It's all of us, whatever color, creed, or religion you are. We all are New Milford. And a case in point was the Thompson's event. I got the phone call that something happened there, something egregious. When I got there was already a bunch of people there, already willing to lend a hand, already willing to help. What do you need? What can we do? What's happening? Mr. Gronbach was there also. And you know what happened? One gentleman came up with a bucket, and a whole bunch of people got together, and the town cleaned the windows. So that's what this town is about. It's not about hate, it's not about this, it's not about that. That's a bunch of garbage. This town talks and helps each other. And that was a testament at Thompson's. And I'm proud of everybody for stepping up for that.
Yeah, the response to this attack was nonpartisan. It was the way that we want our community to come together, and it was impressive. But going forward, we need to recognize also the mayor's office has to be a leader in the fact that this isn't a one-time thing that you could just kind of hold hands, wash off the graffiti, and move on with our lives. So we've actually created a Hate Has No Home Here group where we brought together different ethnicities and different people in the community to address the underlying issues that led to that attack and have a progressive and have a plan of action moving forward so that that doesn't become something that defines New Milford in the future. It becomes something that we continue to work together on, regardless of race, creed, or anything else.
Thank you. Next question from Mr. Bass. What should the town's role in supporting local nonprofits, such as the Children's Center, be? Have we exceeded our proper role of government in paying for the insurance for some of these employees?
Thank you, Ken. So, the Children's Center. What a wonderful asset that is to this town. The town took the endeavor. The town asked the Children's Center years ago, we need an agency to help us with the low to median income children so they have a place to go. Children's Center took on that endeavor that we asked them to do. They then came back to the town council and said, we can't do it anymore. The cost of insurance is too much, it will break us, and we will be out of business. So at that time, our forefathers on council said, let's put you on the insurance to help you. As a matter of fact, the Children's Center is on our city action plan, for those that didn't know that. The Children's Center not only provides daycare for our low to moderate income people, but they fundraise themselves, over $500,000 to help them. The grant provided has specifics. Some of the teachers, they have to have master's degrees. That costs a lot of money. They can go anywhere. So one of the caveats is the health insurance. To me, when I looked at this, it's a return on our investment. Is the children worth it? Is the parent that instead of staying home and going on welfare, getting a hand up and an opportunity to work? I heard that plenty of times from the people that came to the audience.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, so the Children's Center and all of our nonprofits are a really interesting issue. The CEO of the town has to set priorities. And the priority when you're the CEO and you're negotiating bargaining agreements is health insurance is one of the most important benefits that the town offers to its employees. And this was brought to my attention. It's not like I knew anything about the Children's Center or this agreement, but it was brought by people in personnel saying, you know, Mayor, this has been a problem for a number of years and it needs to be addressed. And so we looked at it and we said, okay, you know, health insurance is limited to town employees. That's what the contract with our health insurance is. And we're self-funded, so we're paying for those town employees' health insurance as well. The Children's Center was not an employee of the town. So from a contractual point of view, it was very straightforward. But we had our town attorneys review it legally, tell us about what's the legal implication of this. And it was a very big issue. They said, you know, legally, you don't have the authority to extend health insurance to people that don't work for the town. And call it town, you know, town health insurance. You could call it something else, but you can't call it that. So, unfortunately, I mean, I understand that this has been going on for a long time, but it wasn't a matter of emotion. It was a matter of what is the town legally allowed to do. And in this case, it was not allowed to do that. But that's not the end of the story. So we worked out a compromise where we said, okay, we can't have you on our health insurance, but what we're going to do is we'll write you a check so that you can buy your health insurance. Okay? So we're going to continue to support you, and the amount actually went up from $79,000 to somewhere close to $130,000 a year. So we do that for the Children's Center, but we support a lot of nonprofits, from the V&A to the VFW to the Cemetery Association as well. And that's a good thing, and the town benefits from supporting these nonprofits, and there's many more that are deserving of it as well.
I think we have a special relationship with the Children's Center. We asked them to fulfill a duty. And on top of that, we gave them our word years ago to help them. So I think we need to do everything within our power. We did hear from, at that particular point in time, our insurance agent, carrier, who no longer is our carrier, that told us that there was an opportunity to keep them on. I think we need to explore every opportunity to make sure that the Children's Center stays the viable place for the low to moderate income children to get a chance and to get an opportunity. And also, as a side note, that Children's Center also helps a lot of the other nonprofits, because they go to the Pratt Center, they go to the Village Center, they pay for those services. So it creates an ecosystem amongst itself for vitality and for help with our nonprofit community.
Okay, next we're going to turn to a couple of questions about personal qualities. And this is a two-part question that's really designed. The first question for Mayor Gronbach, the second part of the question for Mr. Bass. Even people who agree with you have raised some concerns about how you go about getting things done. How would you respond? And then to Mr. Bass, your personal finances have recently become part of the public conversation. Do you think that voters should evaluate this information in terms of responsibility and overseeing the budget?
Sure. How I've gotten things done is pretty general and vague, but I'll try to venture a guess at how we got to that criticism. I'd like to say, first of all, I mean, I've created more subcommittees that involve the town council and Mr. Bass in a bipartisan manner than I think has ever been created in the past 10 years. So I've tried to engage, both sides of the parties on issues that affect the town and issues that come before the town council. But I think it's with regard to how I've gotten Pettibone done, because everything else has been almost through a unanimous vote of the town council. But Pettibone has always been around along party lines. And there's been a criticism that I should have created a committee to address Pettibone. And what I say to that is the last election was a referendum on saving Pettibone. And there was no committee that was needed for that, because a committee, the point of a committee is to find consensus. And there are very clear and defined lines with regard to Pettibone. One party wanted to abandon it and demolish it, and another party wanted to keep it and create a community center out of it. And so I was forced with a situation where, when I took office, it had the heat hadn't been turned on, and it was basically left to fall apart. And ever
Eversource had said, you know, in our files, the town told us this was going to be demolished. So I really didn't have the time or the luxury in a 2-year term to create a committee and go through that process to save Pettibone. I had to act if I was going to fulfill my campaign promise. And I tried to involve Mr. Bass and the council at every step of the way and explain to them the budget, what work was going to be done, why we're doing it, why it's so great for the community, because Parks and Rec and Youth Agency and Social Services, they came to me and said, we want to go there, we need to go there, this is a great opportunity for us. And that's just been a matter of following through and helping them achieve that goal.
My question first. So, about my personal finances. Most of you already know through Facebook posts that I owed money. Here's the good news. My $200 car tax paid. Good news is town got 18% for that. About my medical debt and my other debts, most all of it's paid. By the end of the year, it'll all be paid. So here's something you need to know about me for those that don't. I didn't run away from it. I didn't hide from it. Like a lot of us, we have issues that we try and work through. Like a lot of us, we decide, are we going to put food on the table for our kids, or are we going to let that check go for a day or two or a month? It's all about priorities. But I never ran from it, and I never hid from it. And if you have any questions, you can come talk to me about it anytime you want. My number, 203-788-2619. Thank you.
We're going to take, at this point, a 2-minute break. I'd ask that you not leave your seat just because it's disruptive. It'll take a long time to get everybody to get back in their seat so that we can review the questions submitted from the audience. So if you give us about 2 minutes, we'll review some of those questions and we'll be right back. Thank you. Maybe we could ask, yeah. Could you ask him?
Yeah. Is there any chance we can get it's out of the microphones on? Did you guys get what the microphones were? I mean, they were working before. I don't know what happened.
I'm Jeff Milford,
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's try this one. Come on. One, two, three. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please, we'll get started again. All right. How are we doing on our mics here, gentlemen?
Yes.
Hold on. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Here we go. So, we're going to have a little fun here. We're going to go through a few little flash questions. Yes, no, one-word answer. Starting with the mayor. Trump, good or bad for America? One word answer, please. Mr. Bass.
Good in theory.
He's our president.
Okay, do you think religious faith should play a role in decisions you make as mayor? Mr. Bass.
I think religion is an important part of my life. So yes.
Yes, I teach catechism, and that's the moral foundation for the decisions we do make. Is this supposed to be yes or no?
Yes or no? I'll make it easy one. Mr. Mayor, Yankees, Red Sox, Mets.
Mets.
Well, Mayor, we agree. Mets.
Mr. Bass, do you support the Candlewood Mountain Solar Panel Project? Yes or no?
No.
I support advocating for the process before the Siting Council.
Mr. Mayor, in a tight budget year, do you support pay-to-play?
No.
No.
Mr. Bass, do you think the town should weigh in on matters of general public discussion, such as abortion, kneeling, and singing the national anthem? Yes or no?
Definitely the national anthem. The other ones are national.
As they affect local issues, then yes.
Mr. Mayor, do you believe in the National Climate Assessment, which indicates that global warming is made by human action?
Yes.
Yes.
And finally, Mr. Bass, are you more likely to support the NRA or Senator Chris Murphy regarding gun legislation?
I believe in the Second Amendment, and I believe in gun rights, but I also believe that we have to be responsible for ownership of firearms.
It sounds like, I think Chris Murphy believes the same thing, the Second Amendment, but reasonable background checks and limitations on certain weapons.
Thank you very much. Starting with Mr. Back to the questions from the audience. What are your concrete steps to bring economic development to the town and not at Cumberland Farms?
So the first thing I would do as mayor would be to reinstate the Economic Development Corporation. That corporation, when it was available, can help with facade improvement grants, as it has done in the downtown. It can help with financing. It can help with loans to small businesses. It can help with the SBA loans that our community banks do. Also mezzanine financing. Those are all real important components to our small business and medium-sized businesses here in town. The fact that with these corporations, you're able to access what's called Community Reinvestment Act funds that allow for more opportunity for our businesses to expand and grow. I also would make it a priority of our administration to make sure New Milford was open for business. We would go out and selectively hunt these businesses. We would go to Lower Fairfield County, Westchester County. We would go to Manhattan to look at ancillary headquarters for New Milford. New Milford's a great place to live and also to work. So I think we have an opportunity, and may I say that again, an opportunity to expand our economic base here in New Milford, which, by the way, helps offset our personal taxes, and that's a win-win for our town.
Sure. So we are already in the process of attracting, new manufacturing, new light industry into town, and you're going to see that coming and taking effect within the next couple of months. There's already a place that's getting ready to open on Route 7, a national recognized chain that provides trophies and plaques throughout the entire nation. So we are primarily situated to continue to bring people in, not just retail, because we can't focus on that, but actual industry that provides jobs. And the fact is that with our Economic Development Director, Kevin Bielmeyer, we're doing that, and we're marketing the town. We just released a video, Explore New Milford today, that introduces the outside world to New Milford, not only to people that are looking to move here and live here, but to people that are looking to do business here. And we're starting to see the effects of that and a tremendous amount of interest in empty buildings that are on downtown and Main Street and everything else. The Economic Development Corp, it's a great idea. When I got into office, the chairman called me and said, Mayor, it's either going to fold or you've got to designate your director to work for us. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm passionate about economic development as well. So you guys have had 12, 15 years to get the Corp going and to do what you say you're going to do, and it hasn't. And it's not a knock against that, it's just that it didn't work out. The resources weren't there for the corporation to do what it was intended to do. And that's fine, but we need to focus and we need to empower people like Kevin Bielmeyer, who's reached out to the state and brought all kinds of partners and people to New Milford to show that it is open for business and that we've got a great community with great infrastructure, access to employment, talent, and infrastructure as well. So we're going to continue to keep doing that, and you're going to see the results as these businesses open up and fill vacant space.
As your mayor, I will bring business into town. I will partner with our economic development employees, as well as our private sector, as well as our banks, as well as our investment community. I will bring jobs and I will bring business to New Milford.
Thank you. The next question is from the audience, from Mayor Gronbach. Mayor Gronbach, this budget year, a $1.5 million mistake was made by your finance department. Why were the proper checks and balances not in place to prevent this from happening?
Yeah, our comptroller made a mistake and he double counted $1.5 million in revenue. And the fact is that we are a bare bones municipality. You go somewhere else, their finance department is multiple layers. Here in New Milford, we've got a finance director and a comptroller, and that's it. So, at a certain point, you've got to rely on the facts that people give to us. And he made a mistake, and we recognize that people make mistakes. I didn't fire him, I didn't throw him under the bus, but we did have to come back to the town council and make some tough decisions about how do we rectify that while keeping the tax increase reasonable at 1.8%. And I think we did that. And at the end of the day, I said, here's my proposal to address this. And I opened it up to Mr. Bass, the other members of the town council, to say, what is your solution to keep this tax rate? You can either raise taxes, or we could look at other ways and avenues to keep the 1.8% tax rate. And it's unfortunate that a mistake like that gets made on something that's so important, but at the end of the day, it's how you deal with it, as opposed to looking back and trying to punish the people that are responsible.
So we do all make mistakes. The mistake was made, and how do you deal with it? One of the things I think is we can learn. We learn how did it happen, and then we learn to correct it and make sure there's protocol put in place that it can't happen again. On top of that, we also look at reinvigorating, as I said before, the Board of Finance, the second set of eyes, so that they can also, with us on town council, make sure not only the expenditures are done properly on that side of the ledger, but the revenues are done as well.
Yeah, I think it's fair, but unfortunately, whether you're the town council or the Board of Finance, you're relying on the people that are providing these budget numbers, whether it's a department head in Public Works or Parks and Rec, or whether it's the comptroller. We're all relying upon that. So you could add as many layers of oversight as you want, but if the original numbers are not accurate, everybody's going to be wrong down the line. And in this case, and it was actually a simple mistake. I mean, it wasn't something that was really complicated. He simply overcounted something that he knew shouldn't have been overcounted. And we addressed it. We talked about it. He understands how it happened. I can't imagine it ever happening again. And what we do is we move on.
Thank you. A question from Mr. Bass. What would your plan to pay for needed road reconstruction in New Milford be? Would you use bonding, raise taxes, or something else? And how much money do you think we need to get our roads in decent shape?
So I think it would be a combination of the monies that we already have now, and also looking at different ways of how we do the roads. I was able to speak with a lot of companies that do this for a living. And one of the things that they told me that was very interesting was that we could get 20 to 25% more of our money that we spent to do more roads if we change the way we do the process. Everything from the way we bid the roads to when we do the roads. So to me, it's a no-brainer if you change the protocol, if you bring in the experienced volunteers that can help us make those plans and change those plans. That's a 25% increase right off the bat. So we could start right there. Secondly, we'll fund the roads every year. We won't skip a year, or we won't skip 2 years, because as our Public Works Director, Mike Zarba, has told us, every dollar that we don't do today costs us $5 in the future. So to me, we become prudent. We look at ways to maximize our dollars and our return on our investment. And on top of that, we look at ways to grow our economic development to allow us to do more roads.
Yeah, we have some really great and talented people in Public Works, and we created a roads committee right now, and I can tell you, if there were a way that we could very easily or automatically wave a magic wand and save 25% on our road costs, believe me, these guys would have done it, and they would have found a way to do it at this point. I don't think that it's as simple as Mr. Bass makes it sound, because if you trust these guys and they know what they're doing, they would have done that already. But ultimately, listen, our roads have been deteriorating because they've been patched and there's been no real process to address them, not just for the past 14 years, but for going back beyond that. So before you could start just throwing money at roads, this is a situation where you really do need a plan, and we've started to do that by creating a roads committee, but even more important than that, we've got this scientific scanning equipment that's going over every single road in New Milford with ultrasound, with ultraviolet, you know, taking microphones and measuring the noise, so that at the end of the day we can prioritize the roads that we have, know what the issues are with them, and then we're in a position then after that to install a 10-year plan where every single road in New Milford gets addressed, gets touched, and then we can figure out a way to pay for it. And the fact of the matter is, you've got to do it with a combination of bonds, of financing, of direct funding, but also most importantly, and this is where Trump comes in, and that's why I say it's good in theory, the federal government and the state government has to get involved in helping us maintain our infrastructure. And we've got to be advocates at that level as well, because we simply cannot do all this by ourselves. We haven't been doing it, we're starting to do it now, but there's a lot more work to be done.
Thank you. So first I'd like to thank the Roads Committee, John Whitman and his committee, doing yeoman's work. I happened to attend one of their meetings at the John Pettibone Community Center, and I'll give you a quick synopsis of why we could save more money doing the roads that we're doing now. So we're talking about the Long Mountain Road project. So we're only doing about half of the project. Only half for right now. So think about it. If you did the full project all at one time, same trucks are there. Same equipment is there. You only have to set up one time. You break it up, double your cost. Something to think about.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Ladies and gentlemen, the campaigns had agreed to an hour debate, and the hour has come. And we're going to conclude the debate with a 1-minute closing argument or closing statement from each of the candidates, and Mayor Gronbach, you go first.
Sure, so ladies and gentlemen, I'll try to make this as brief and quick as possible. The past 2 years have seen a tremendous amount of accomplishments here in New Milford. We've seen the face of our town change. We've seen the vibe and the energy in our town change. We've responded to the reality of the situation that we're facing nowadays in an environment where Hartford is putting pressure on the municipalities with their funding, where the economy is changing and moving jobs from one place to another, and where we are competing with the surrounding towns around us for not only talent, for families, but for jobs and business development as well. I've started a lot over the past 2 years. We've invested in things like the quality of life issues, like the river trail, but it's not done. It's not finished. There's more to do. The library has moved more in the past 2 years than it has in the past 20, and we're on the cusp of getting a modern library as a result of this. So what I ask of you, ladies and gentlemen, is to allow me to continue the progress that I've made, the energy that I've invested in this town, and continue with the momentum that we have started and that we just want to see finished.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. In closing, I will continue to run a positive campaign that talks about the issues and highlights the wonderful assets this town has to offer. I will continue to promote, as I always have, our town is the greatest town in the USA. New Milford is our choice to live, work, and play. Also, raise your family here too. As your mayor, I will be approachable and value your input. I will bring my years of experience as a multi-term town councilman, decades-long volunteer to work for you at Town Hall. I believe in an inclusive government that welcomes taxpayer opinions and ideas. Some of my priorities: community engagement and civility, building a stronger local economy to support job creation, maintaining affordability for our families, protecting New Milford's rural character and charm. Now, it's your turn. November 7th, Tuesday. I ask you to go to the polls and vote. Our brave men and women of the armed forces have given their time, talent, and sometimes their lives for this right. Your vote will decide the future of New Milford going into the next decade. I ask for your support. God bless,
and God bless New Milford. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to the debate. Thank you for your courtesy to both candidates. We'd like to thank both candidates, wish them both well, congratulate them for